First of all, welcome, Sampark. Thank you so much for investing time with us. I must say that LinkedIn is a very very important tool today when it comes to career. And you know, fortunately, a lot of people have started to understand that, but there is still this large segment of people who do not understand that very well. So, thanks for spending time and helping us understand that better. Just quickly talking a little bit about, how I know you and, a little bit about your past. So, you know, Sampark here has worked with organizations like Asian Paints, Ola, Oyo, in senior sales roles across across these infamous organizations. And personally, I and Sampark connected at Oyo, where Sampark was heading Bombay sales for all of Oyo. And I was responsible for driving sales from the offline channel for one of the businesses of Oyo. And that's how we connected. And here we are. We never knew that we could get on a call like this sometime in the future, right? But yeah, so that's where we are. Sampath, why don't you maybe talk a little bit, spend a minute or so, and talk a little bit about how your journey has been across all these organizations. What prompted you really to start looking at LinkedIn so seriously? And then how have you been able to create a career altogether around LinkedIn, sitting at the center of it?
Decade of corporate experience. So 5 years with Asian Paints, 3 years with Ola, 2 years with Oyo, and it was various geographies, various roles in sales and marketing across. But somewhere down the line, around 5 years back, was where I started working on LinkedIn very, very, I would say, consciously. Like everybody else, I'd come here looking for a job change, etc. But somewhere down the line, I realized that this is not a platform where you just come and you look for a job. It's a much bigger platform. It's a much bigger platform where you can build a brand for yourself. So I tell it in all my sessions that people assume it's a job search platform or a sales platform. It is neither. It's a personal branding platform. It's a relationship building platform, which if you do well, then sales and jobs are byproducts of this. So the very fact that when we met in Oyo, a lot of people recognized me for the kind of content I was putting out on LinkedIn. And I also remember going into a lot of corporate meetings as such, where the client used to recognize me from LinkedIn, and it was very easy for me to crack deals in such a case because the person recognized me as an individual. Why is LinkedIn also important is more so in today's time, job security is a myth. So the only brand that sticks with you till your deathbed is your name. And that's what you need to make as a brand. And that's something that I realized on my time during on LinkedIn. And then I think the LinkedIn Spotlight Award last year changed a lot of things, where I got the confidence that maybe I'm doing something right. So the fact that LinkedIn recognized me as one of the top content creators in India was a big confidence booster that maybe I have done something and this has been right. I felt it's time to now reach out to more people and help them in replicating or something what I've been able to do on the platform.
Great. So since you mentioned about LinkedIn Spotlight, can you just brief us a little bit about how that works really? Because a lot of us here look at it as a great reward for sure, but how does it really work? How does that come across?
So LinkedIn every year comes out with a few lists that are there. Spotlight is one of those lists, which is the top content creators with the maximum engaging and viewed content. So that's a list of, if you would recognize names like Ankur Warikoo was there on that list, Manu Kumar Jain from Xiaomi was there on that list. So I was somehow lucky enough to just make it through. So that's where it is, and I think that's why a lot of people recognize me. And today, and that's been the cause of the venture that I started, which is Sampark se Sampark. And I would say at least 8 to 10 organic leads coming to me on a weekly basis. People recognize me more as Sampark rather than saying, okay, he's an ex-head sales at Oyo, or he's a ex-marketing head for Ola. Because end of the day, as I said, the only brand that you have is you yourself. And that's what you need to carry through.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very interesting cohort to be a part of, to be honest. I have personally seen content being created by Ankur. And I mean, I think he's like, the next big thing when it comes to content in some ways. So Yeah, it's a great achievement there. Now sort of moving this conversation a little towards developers, Sampark, uh, I am personally not a developer, but what I'm decently active on LinkedIn, I would say, not very active, but decently active. And what I've seen a lot is that a lot of developers don't seem to even maintain profiles there, or even not have a profile at all in the first place, or if they have profiles and they're not very well maintained, they don't put in all the credentials there, etc. So what is the importance of keeping your profile truly up to date? And a little, could you talk a little bit about that maybe?
So if I give you an example, I have a lot of my students who are there who've got jobs from LinkedIn even without interviews. The fact that they've been visible over a period of time, a lot of them, when they were offered the job and they turned back and said, "Sir, interview." He said, "In a 15-minute interview, you can fake, but 365 days, the mindset that I see of yours, that's something that cannot be faked." So that's something that is there. And maintaining a profile is only one part of it, because I tell that the profile is like your personal website, and then it's your job to get the traffic on that website. So one, your website should be strong enough. Second, once the traffic comes to it, you should be able to convert that traffic into conversations, jobs, businesses, etc. And I'll give you an example from my time in Oyo. I used to get at least 20 resumes a day for people or saying looking for a job. Now, I cannot help anybody and everybody, even though I want to. But if there is one person or two people out there who I say, okay, I think I recognize this name, or maybe I think I've seen this guy's content, uh, I'm able to break the clutter. So out of the thousands and lakhs of developers across the country, how do you stand out so that if you reach out to somebody and say, okay, I need a job, the person should at least recognize you by name. Today,
Hmm.
if somebody like you writes to me and I say, okay, I know Anurag, I've seen his content, or I've seen his kind of comments that he puts, he's very intelligent, he's very knowledgeable, you automatically beat competition right there. So it's very good. From if you want to do freelancing, if you want to create a side hustle, if you want to get a new job, that's the place to be in. And you never know, for me, leaving a complete full-fledged corporate career to start something like this, anybody can replicate that as and when they need to.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. One question, another question that I had in mind, maybe Abhishek, you can possibly take a question here, and then I will come back
Yeah,
with my
so
with my question.
just curious to, if there would be, just 3 points that you would have to suggest to any fresher, because, a lot of freshers are very, they're very naive and very, they find it very difficult that how we can use LinkedIn actually to, get a first job. So what, would be 3-4 points, basic points that, anyone or everyone should have on their LinkedIn profile to, sort of start building the LinkedIn profile?
So first thing is get your profile ready. Now, when I say get your profile ready, everybody has a profile, but having a proper profile with the objective of whatever your objective is. So if it's getting business, getting a job, whatever. Now, if you look at an Instagram has two elements. One is the pic and the bio. LinkedIn has 15 elements. There is a reason where there are 15 elements. Every element has a purpose to be solved. So ensure that all of those factors are put in. So that's the first point when you talk from the profile bit of it. Secondly, your profile picture, your headline, your about section, every element needs to be properly filled in. Understand the background of every element, why is it there, and do that. Secondly, start producing content. It's very important that you are regular on the platform in terms of producing content. You start talking about your niche, you start talking about your expertise, so that people in the relevant genre start realizing you, that yes, you exist. So people say, acha, I think I recognize Sampark, meri se baat nahi hui hogi. But if they recognize me tomorrow, if I approach them, a lot of people complain that they write on LinkedIn and people don't respond, that their response rate is barely 5% or 10%. I can tell you my response rate is greater 85 to 90%, because मैं जिसको लिखता हूँ वो एटलीस्ट मेरे को नाम से पहचानता है, तो the reply to aata hi hai. So that's what you need to do. So second part is that you need to be very regular in your content creation. Third is that you need to start networking. You need to reach out to people. You need to start talking to them. You need to start engaging with their content, etc. So the third part is that you have to be a little proactive and reach out. So yeah, so it should be, your profile should be updated. You should be regular in your content creation. Third, that you should be actively reaching out and talking to people.
Right.
Great. On the second point there, Sampark. So I get the first point and the third point that are very clear in the hand, right? I can easily, go to LinkedIn and just, there's a simple effort on trying and completing my profile there. Uh, Third point is also comparatively more easy, where you just have to start, reaching out to more and more people. It's about dropping a message, etc., or connecting with more people. But the second point becomes very critical there. How do you create content that people engage with? How do you identify that, okay, these are the sort of contents that I should create so that people of my genre engage more and more with it?
So if you look talking from somebody who's in a technical background, okay, now the point is, if your objective is that people in your genre recognize you, start talking about you can start talking about developments in your industry, you can start talking about trends, you can start talking about some project that you've done, you can start talking about some certification, something that you've learned, some tips that you start talking about. So if you're a developer and you're talking about the latest things that are happening in the development industry, so people who are senior to you, people who are recruiters, they start realizing, okay, you are up to date, you know what's happening. If you're talking about tips of somebody who's learning how to develop, then the younger people start looking up to you, okay, that he's sharing knowledge with us, he's giving value. So you decide what your niche is, you decide who your target audience is, and then basis that you start talking to people. So if you look at me, I come from a sales marketing background. LinkedIn is one part of what I do. I do a lot of sales marketing consultancy. I want people to start recognizing me for what I do. So then I'm talking about, okay, 5 things that every salesperson should look at. If you want to do B2B sales, what should you look at? So similar to your genre, pick up value content, and you can start posting about that.
Got it. Abhishek?
So, again, as I said, the first question was about, just asking how any fresher can, engage through their LinkedIn profile. The second question, I've recently seen, a lot of people, again, as you said, that, you should create content, and Anurag already, emphasized on that point. At times it becomes difficult. Again, yes, we can do, always share content related to new technologies being introduced, the projects we are, doing. But for a fresher, at times, these things can be a bit difficult. So one thing, again, a recent trend that I've seen on LinkedIn is that people do share their certificates, whatever, trainings they've done. So does this have any impact actually on, roping in attention or anyhow?
So see, certifications, one is if you do a post about it, that's okay. You can go ahead and do it, but you should also focus a lot on the learning about it. So if I've done one certification, I'm sure if I ask a developer saying, okay, what are the 5 things that you learned out of it? So he can always create 5 posts out of every small certification or online course that he's doing. The point is, jo dikhta hai, wo bikta hai. So if you're telling people that, okay, this is what I learned, so the moment you put, and a lot of students ask me this, is it about the number of certifications that you put out? I'd say it's, once you put out a certification, it's, you are giving the right to the guy on the other end, so your interviewers, to ask you question and say कि मेरे को इसकी पूरी knowledge है. So one is just doing the certification. Secondly, you're saying that, okay, I know this thing in and out. So the point is, that is what you need to show. That is where you need to show the knowledge of what you learned. You can obviously create a story and say, okay, while doing this last certification, I came across these 5 things that I learned new, which I was not aware of. So show that knowledge, show the thing that you have developed. One post on the certificate can be good, but then you can create a lot more content on what you actually learned out of it. You can talk about books that you have read. So it can be a book review or a course review kind of a thing, recommending people that you should do this course or you should check out this website or something on those lines. That again shows that, okay, you are up to date. आज मैं अगर बोल रहा हूँ कि ये बुक पढ़ो बिजनेस पे बहुत अच्छी है, that means मैंने खुद पढ़ी है. So all those are subtle ways of marketing yourself and saying, okay, see how intelligent I am.
So another question, as you said that, you do a lot of, live session trainings. So what is the audience, age group that are generally, more focused towards learning how to use LinkedIn, maybe, to change a job or, just to, as I said, freshers. So this is something, that our product actually deals with. So what is the general age group of people that are actually, you meet a lot and who are actually interested in, improving their LinkedIn profiles? Just curious to know.
See, if you ask me, there are people across genres who come in. Okay, uh, for me specifically, kind of the focus that I put on a professional front and how do you build a personal brand is that my age group is a little towards the late 20s onwards. So I have a lot of 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, where I would want a lot of youngsters to realize the potential of it, because when you're young now, you don't realize how important is building your personal brand. So while it applies to everybody from maybe a 18-year-old onwards, by the time a person realizes acha, how important something like this is, he's already maybe 5-6 years into his job. And that is where I think via this conversation and your students, etc., people who are just passing out 1 year, 2 years experience need to realize that when they say that your network is your net worth, it's not, no matter how cliche it may sound, it is the truth. Because end of the day, आज से 10 साल बाद आप किसको जानते हो, that matters. और आपको कौन जानता है? A lot of people on LinkedIn put 15,000 connections, 20,000 connections. भाई 15-20 हजार में आपको कितने लोग जानते हैं? Because as you go up the ladder, your jobs become scarce. A lot more important becomes your referral. A lot more important becomes, okay, I know somebody in that organization who can push my CV ahead. That is the realization a lot of people get once they are 5-6 years into the work. What has worked for me, that I realized it in time. And that's what now I'm trying to do. Maybe your students, if they genuinely understand, if there is even one person who's hearing this and realizes the absolute potential of the platform, I think my work is done here. So, yeah.
I was saying the point that you made around your network being net worth. That's a very, very strong point, I would say, because I was saying that we are all, including myself, we are all very ignorant about the fact that the way the world today is moving. Look at the amount of time that we spend on our phones, right? We are constantly looking at Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and consuming all the content there. And somewhere or the other, I think 99% of the people are not cognizant of the fact that they are personally not creating any content, they are personally not creating any following. And 5-10 years, if in the last 5-10 years LinkedIn, Facebook have become such a big deal, imagine what they can be, say 10 years down the line, right? We are already seeing that TV media is going down, for example, right? All the old forms of media are shutting down. So the newer form of media is going to be this, and the amount of reach that you have, say 5-10 years down the line, is going to define how powerful you are. One of the points that you mentioned a couple of minutes back was around response rate, right? Where you said that most people complain that their response rate is say 5%, 10%, and in your case that's 80-85%. So while one way is to organically build your following, build your brand, and then over time start to get better response rates, what can be a couple of quick pointers that you can share so that an individual's response rate for either for sales or for job opportunities, etc., they improve?
So one thing that you should always do when you're connecting with people is send a personalized invite, because a lot of people are apprehensive of accepting invites because they're not sure ये सामने वाला क्यों connect करना चाह रहा है. Because there are a lot of people, the moment you accept, वो आपको CV आ जाएगा. Now that's not how it is done. So one, you should always have a personalized invite, and when you're sending a personalized invite, always go through the person's profile, find a point of common contact, or go through his posts, etc. So if I write, "Hi Anurag, I realize that both of us work at OYO, but we never spoke to each other. Would love to connect." So even though we've spoken, but the fact that I mentioned a common denominator, there is a level of receptiveness. Or if I say, "Hi Abhishek, I went through your website study tonight. I love the content that you're putting up. Love what you're doing. Would love to connect to discuss more." Now, what have I done is I've given Abhishek a small compliment. Abhishek, anybody feels good when you say, "Okay, you're doing good work." The guy becomes a little vulnerable and he accepts. But that's where you need to spend a little time. It's not about going to searching something and going connect, which most people do. So that's one. Secondly, as soon as you, I'll tell you, and everybody does a Google search, how do you get more response? So Google says, engage, don't ask. Okay. And people take that literally. Okay. in my OYO times, I could predict 90 to 95%, यार ये 7 दिन में मेरे से जॉब मांगने वाला है. Because वो क्या करेगा? Suddenly he goes about every post, awesome post, great post, liking everything, etc. The point is, engagement is not forced. थोड़ा सा टाइम लगता है. You go on his post, comment means show your knowledge, show your skill, show your thought leadership. So that's how you put that across. So yes, there is no shortcut to building your personal brand. You can speeden it up with this way. You can talk about personalized invites. You can talk about engaging on the other person's content. And if you are one of the first few people to engage with the content, there is a very high chance of getting a response. So comment box leads to a lot of conversation. You see the brand Sampark se Sampark. That is not a name that I created. That was suggested by somebody else in the comments of one of my LinkedIn posts. So, and that I did not know the guy. He suggested this. We had a couple of exchanges on the chat box. I ended up meeting him for coffee. Today he's a very close friend. We are regularly chatting on WhatsApp, etc. In the comment box itself, I landed up having conversations with one of the top CEOs of the country. I landed up at his place having lunch with him, etc. because of the exchange that you had. So build genuine conversations. It's not about coming and say, ये रहा मेरा CV, मेरे को job दे दो. वैसे नहीं होता है. If you come with to the intention of taking from the platform, you will not get anything. But if you come with the intention of giving, you will get. Then you don't need to take. So the fact that today, after moving out of OYO, I have been able to do 85 sessions just in the lockdown. I've been able to do trainings for 12,500 people. The fact that all my leads are organic. I have now close to 80,000 followers on the platform. It is because मेहनत लगी है. बहुत टाइम डाला है, बहुत एफर्ट डाला है. Yes, generally what with my sessions I try to help people avoid the mistakes that I did, but there is no absolute shortcut to success here.
Got it. One small anecdote that sort of comes in my mind over here is that very often while I was working with OYO, and even now, I think one of these messages came in 2 days back, where a person sends me their resume and tells me, I want a job, I'm in real need, and please don't ignore this message as well. So that just becomes a big bummer, right? That I think a lot of people make that mistake, that clearly a lot of people need jobs in the market, there's no doubt about it. And I think one hygiene factor is also hygiene is also a big factor, I would say, in improving the response rates. Would you agree?
It is. Not just the fact that in the lockdown, I've got 5 job offers which I've said no to. Now, getting 5 job offers in the lockdown organically, even without me applying for it. So that's the kind of perception that you create. The moment you play the victim card. I know the situation is bad. It is bad, but then you cannot play a victim card. Today, when I jumped into my so-called entrepreneurial venture, I always knew that I can go back into a job. And I'm sure a lot of organizations will appreciate the fact that you, in a lockdown kind of a situation created out of this, I showed my mettle of building up a business during this time that people will appreciate even if it fails. So the point is, you need to show that maturity, you need to show that professionalism, you need to show that thought leadership as a person. So you can't go about and say, don't ignore this message, I'm in deep trouble. I know things are desperate, I know things are bad, but then you can't put it out that way as a victim there. So there are better ways of putting it out there.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So another one basic question from my side. So how often do you think anyone should update their LinkedIn profiles? Because generally we do it whenever there's a job change, or when I start looking for a new job. So that is the time when I would really focus on my LinkedIn profile and do some updates there. So is it something that we should do very often, frequently, or is it fine to whenever there's a change in role or change in job that we update our LinkedIn profiles?
Okay, Abhishek, I tell a lot of people come to LinkedIn when they're in trouble. please understand, don't come here when your plan A has failed. Come here when your plan A is working well, so that God forbid your plan A fails tomorrow, you have a plan B to fall back on. Because एक बार वो plan A fail हुआ तब आप plan B बनाने बैठोगे तो problem हो जाएगी. So don't come here when you're looking for a job. Okay, keep it updated real time. Keep coming here. I would say I post once a day. I tell starters to at least post twice a week, and then take it up to maybe 5 times a week. So come here. आपको आज आपकी प्रोफाइल में कुछ अपडेट करने का मिल रहा है, please do so. Don't wait. Don't. It has to happen real time. Your content creation has to come real time, and that's how it has to be. So at least 2 posts a week has to come out of your handle. End of the day, वही है, जो दिखता है वो बिकता है. If people see you, you will get your jobs. So yes, your profile has to be updated real time. There is no, and if you're regular with the platform now, you realize, acha, this thing that I put is working, not working. Am I getting more leads? Am I getting more interest in my profile? And then you can keep tweaking. So if you keep looking at my headline, also my headline changes every month basis what my particular objective at this particular stage is. So if I'm looking for more leads towards LinkedIn, then that LinkedIn will be right up there. If I'm now looking for more leads towards my sales marketing consultancy, then that goes up right up there. So that's how you can keep those, playing with those minor changes that you do.
Okay.
Right. Also, Sampark, lately there has been, I'm not sure if lately is the right word, but for the last 5-10 years or so, there has been a lot of excitement around working with startups, right? And I think that spans across whether the person is a sales guy or a developer, whatever domain you come from. And given that background, do you think that since startups are generally not on day one, they don't have an HR team, right, where they have 10 people working with various HR companies, right? So for people who are keen on working with startups, my personal innate feeling is that there also LinkedIn can play a big role, because you can possibly reach out to a founder, co-founder, or a technology head and directly message them. And these are very close-knit small teams of 10, 20, 50, 25 people. So what's your view on that? Do you think for a developer to be able to crack a startup job, to be able to get into the startup ecosystem, LinkedIn can play a big valuable role?
Absolutely, because a lot of startups and younger startups are in need of talent. LinkedIn is a very good platform to attract good talent and also get jobs. So it can be also looking at jobs. It can also be looking at side hustles. It can be also good at something like freelancing. So I know a lot of developers who build websites on the side and etc. and build apps on the side, etc. You can always do that. There are so many of my students whose objective here is to create that side hustle. So while you're not explicitly putting it out, because I understand with your job, etc., aap nahi kar sakte. But the moment you start producing content, start conversing with people, a lot of people reach out. So somebody who's I don't come from a tech background, but there was somebody like this who created my website for me as well. Somebody who's doing a full-time job somewhere, but helped me with all this setup that I needed to do. So yes, startup, and plus with a lot of startup owners, since you are reaching with talking to the founder or the decision maker directly, the cycle is smaller. You will immediately get a yes or a no, and everybody at this time requires help. Nobody can do everything. So because a lot of startup owners that I work with, they say, Sampark, product is my forte, sales marketing is not my forte. So that's how I come in as a individual or a freelancer, and I take that headache out of you. The same way a developer comes in and he says, okay, ye product ye part mere pe chhod do, ye main dhyan rakh lunga. So yes, it's absolutely good place to get into startups and side hustles and freelancing and new jobs, etc.
Yeah, on the response cycle bit that you just shared, I just thought of this, that yesterday itself, yesterday morning somebody dropped me a message for a UI UX internship, and they dropped me a message, and we were on a call when this person dropped me a message, when I saw the message, and we were discussing that we need a UI UX intern. And right after I dropped them a message, and after half an hour, our HR called them. I think in 2-3 hours they had their interview and they've joined us today. So within 24 hours they were able to find an opportunity, and particularly given the times right now where the opportunity is slightly more difficult to find, I think you're very right that opportunities can be faster found when you're able to reach startups and founders directly, and obviously the message has to be very crisp and very clear, etc.
I'll give you another. I'll give you another
Sure,
example. During my
sure.
OYO days, there were team members of mine who had messaged me at 10 in the night, and by 10 in the morning they had offer letters in hand. There was somebody who messaged me on a Monday, gave the interview on a Tuesday, uh, got the offer letter on Wednesday, joined on Thursday. So
Yeah.
and these are examples of people in my immediate team, and I'm sure you would recognize a lot of those people if I name them offline. But that's the power of this platform. Today, and the power of being virtual as well, and in the lockdown, today sitting on this very chair in the last 10 months, I have generated business from almost at least 5 continents of the world. I've done sessions in Canada, Morocco, Spain, Australia, Singapore, and that whole geographical barrier breaks down. So that's the power of going virtual, and that's the power of a platform like LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I asked most of the questions that I had. So the last one was actually my personal question, because I personally don't update my LinkedIn very often. So that is why I asked that, how should I, focus more on the LinkedIn profile? And yes, this truly makes sense, because even if, at times we do have mentioned, okay, this is the profile that I'm right now working at, but, the description part is something that, I'll put one paragraph supporting, what is the kind of work that I'm doing. But that definitely keeps on changing with time, right? But I will never update it. And that is, one thing that I'm taking from this session, that, I'll do it. So yeah, no.
You should do it. And I think more as a startup as well. And I'm going a little off track as well. Doing employer branding, attracting good talent, all becomes a part of it. I remember doing sessions for the HR teams to help them do employer branding for their employer as well, because that's how you attract good talent. So yeah, that's something that you can obviously look at.
Right, absolutely.
Great. I think one more point or question that I might have is, I often see that there are a lot of startups coming from developers, because clearly they are the more creative of the lot, right? They have the power to create something. And once they have created great products, or they've got great ideas in place, they're not able to find the right team members. Do you think that LinkedIn can play a role there as well, Sampark?
Absolutely. For startups, this is the place where you get everybody together. And when you look at a Instagram or a Facebook or a Twitter, there you get anybody and everybody. But when you talk from a professional perspective, this is where you come in. And also, I was talking to somebody else and he said, Sampark, how important is the first impression today? As an employer, also, if you're looking for and you're about to get into an interview, you will surely open the guy's profile. And the kind of the profile and the strength of it makes a very strong first impression. A lot of times your decision or your perception or I understand you shouldn't be judgmental, but it is human to judge somebody looking at somebody's profile. That's the power there. So it works both ways. So even as an employer, you can get the best of people, because the moment you go there, you see a lot of his works, you see a lot of his content, you understand the kind of so-called expertise that he comes with, basis his details that he's posted out, so that before you go into a meeting, you're already the battle is half won for the employee as well. So yes, it is very, very important.
Got it. Perfect. I think I'm mostly done with my questions as well. Sampark, are there any last pointers that you would like to share with developers, to be specific, on LinkedIn or otherwise?
I always tell, and I always end my sessions with saying that LinkedIn is an investment. It takes time to give you good returns. So you need to be consistent and you need to be patient. There is no shortcut to success. The shortcuts are short term. If you have to build a personal brand, it is genuinely long term and it takes time. So mehnat karni padegi. That's the only solution there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sampark. This was absolutely brilliant. Thank you for your time. We hope our followers gain a lot from this session, and they start maintaining their LinkedIn profiles in a very polished manner and make all their profiles all stars. So thank you.
Thank you, Anurag. Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Sampark. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks a ton.